Welcome along to the Punter, the show that likes to keep you up to date with all the sports betting action across the sporting calendar. And as we preview the weekend action, we will, of course, be taking a look at the Premier League. I'm pleased to say that Gordon Watson is alongside me in the studio, and alongside Gordon, Luke Tarr of Star Sports, plus Russ Wiseman of Sporting Bet. Flash, first of all, how was your punting week? Has it been profitable so far?
Last Saturday, I think, and Sunday was just typical early season in the Premiership, that you think you've got it nailed and then there's all wonky results. But midweek was all right. I mean, I think there was only a couple of upsets throughout the whole Capital One draw. So, yeah, it's been all right.
But plenty of goals midweek as well. Certainly, Luke, I noticed the Capital One Cup on Tuesday. I think something like 70% of the fixtures were over 2.5 goals. Is that good news for bookmakers or not?
Oh, well, I mean, the goals galore bet is very popular on lots of the star punters. And Fulham getting beat 1-0 at Hillsborough was an absolute tonic for us. I mean, that got a lot of coupons busted right there. But other than that, wasn't a great midweek for us. Lots of goals. Punters like goals.
Russ, I thought I was being rather shrewd backing Helsingborg on the Asian handicap against Celtic, only to get chinned right at the end by a late Celtic goal. I mean, Celtic wins for bookmakers, I would have thought generally bad, because one presumes that with such a big fan base, the supporters like to get behind them.
Well, they do have a big fan base, Celtic, Dan, as you mentioned, but they're hardly the kind of team that really kind of gets them all the punters so stimulated. But that was a bad goal for many punters. It was a bad goal for bookmakers as well, actually, on the correct score coupon. But generally, just a couple of weeks into the season, it's been a difficult start for punters generally. We're obviously forming our opinions now. We're getting used to some of these teams. I know it's very dangerous for all of us to kind of form these early opinions, but it's difficult not to, in it, when you see these strange scorelines going ahead. So it makes this weekend's coupon particularly tricky. Some fascinating games, which I know the boys here will probably pick their way through no problem.
Yeah, hopefully we can pick out one or two winners for you. We're going to start with the early game in the Premier League on Saturday, which is West Ham up against Fulham. An interesting one, because we've got to talk about Andy Carroll first of all. I mean, is he going to make a difference? Should he make a difference in terms of the odds? Flash?
Yeah, both. I mean, I think it's an unbelievable signing for him. I mean, he fits their bill down to the ground, and what a piece of business that they've done at West Ham. I mean, Andy Carroll, he leads the line. He's going to be an absolute pain. And again, they've got Jarvis as well, who's going to supply the ammunition. I mean, West Ham have really gone forward in my book.
I mean, they needed those signings, didn't they, Flash?
Without a doubt. I mean, they won 1-0 when they opened their season, which was basically a bit fluky against probably one of the worst sides we've seen in the first 2 weeks in Aston Villa. But I would definitely say that he will be the main reason that they go on the front foot tomorrow and going forward.
Luke, West Ham at 13-8, Fulham 2-1, the draw 12-5. What do you reckon for the game, Upton Park?
It's desperately difficult, isn't it? I mean, like to what he said then, you know, Carroll is such a massive purchase for them. I can't believe they've got it done. At Star Sports, we've got him in at 10-11 over or under 12.5 goals. So to add 12 Premier League goals, yeah, tell me about it. Can't get enough on, can you? I mean, if you're a big fan like you clearly are, he's 8-1 to score 20 goals in the season. But if you're saying that they've immediately added 12 goals to their team, then there's got to be a great bit of business for a loan signing. On the back of that, Fulham are desperately poor away from home, haven't won at Upton Park in 11 years. I was looking earlier, Fulham have only won 30 of their 210 Premier League away games. So they only win 1 in 7 away games, and you're looking at 15-8, 2-1. I think the value's got to be with the home team. Yeah,
I'm going to say Fulham are notoriously good at home, not so good on their travels. When we look at the correct scores, Russ, if we're edging towards a West Ham win, where would you go?
Well, I certainly think West Ham can win this game, and that formula, Dan, that you mentioned there, back Fulham at home, lay them away, it pretty much pays all the time. Interesting as well, Fulham only drawn 1 of their last 17 Premier League games, so they're obviously either win or lose, and I think West Ham can win this, although if you did watch that game against Swansea, they were pretty grim throughout. When the correct scores here, I mean, the 1-0, 2-0 will always be popular, but I do think there will be goals in this game. So, you know, you look at maybe the 2-1, even the 3-1 that isn't even featured on that chart, I do think we'll see some goals here. Fulham have got their own problems as well. They've lost Dembele, and clearly Dempsey's not around, and it's not a good time for them at the moment, but a well-settled team, clearly a Premier League outfit, aren't they, Fulham? I don't think they'll be battling relegation, whereas I think West Ham, if this Carroll signing doesn't work out, they could be right down there. And if you take, like I say, the overall style of their play last week against Swansea, it was grim, and they were carved apart pretty easily as well. So, you know, they've got to win games like this against teams who don't travel well, West Ham.
Come on, prediction then, Ross.
2-0 West Ham, 12-1. I think that's a fair shout. I think Andy Carroll might get on the score sheet as well. I think that's a great line that Star have set there. I think Sporting we're about a 10-goal line, so I think that's a good shout by them. But I think they'll do well.
Luke, what do you think?
I think West Ham are poor, but I think at the prices, you've got to be with them at 6-4.
Flash.
Yeah, I'm West Ham all the way, and Andy Carroll to score. And the big thing is, if it doesn't work out, then I think Sam Allardyce will be looking for a new job.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at one or two specials when it comes to Andy Carroll, Flash, because we can see here, to score first 6, to score at any time 2-1, to score a couple at 10-1, to announce his arrival at Upton Park 66 with a hat-trick, or just to be carded either
I mean,
red or yellow.
I'd like to have a single on all 3 of them, and maybe a tiny little one on the 66. I mean, or in fact, all 4 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. I mean, they're all value, to be honest, because you can see all of them happening.
Can he make an impact this weekend?
I like the 9-2, a petulant yellow card, that's for sure.
Is he that type of player?
You know, but put it this way, okay, in front of 40,000 new fans, he's looking to be loved. He's going to be flying about the place. He's a big fella, 6'2", 6'3", 15 stone. He's only got to run into one little left back and get a nice little yellow card, and we've copped a 9-2 shot.
Interesting. I'm not quite sure he's going to make that much of an impact, but we will find out, of course, this weekend. Let's move it on to Swansea versus Sunderland. Sunderland, of course, didn't play last weekend because of a waterlogged pitch. Their match against Reading was called off, so they will be desperate to pick up some points, but they're going to find it tough, Flash, at Swansea, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, Swansea only let in 1 goal, and that was in the Cup the other night with a weakened side. I mean, basically, I think they've scored something like 8 goals in the first 2 games in the league and not let one in. I think it'll be a different proposition against Sunderland. I think it'll be a really, really dour game, this. I mean, I've gone for the draw, to be honest. But I think I'm a bit silly maybe going against the trend of how well Swansea have actually started.
Are you surprised how well the Swansea
I am.
started?
I've tipped them to go down, and I'm not going to change my mind just because they've done well over the first 2 games, because Bolton started well last year and they went down. But I think it's only a few weeks away for me to change my mind if they continue on this form. But I don't see them winning tomorrow.
Do you think teams and managers have maybe changed their opinion of Swansea, not just this season but over the course of last year as well, whereas perhaps in the past they would have thought, promoted team, we have to go for a win, but given the way Swansea have played over the last 14, 16 months or so, maybe now they're revising their tactics, and it wouldn't be that much of a surprise if Martin O'Neill went and tried to just play for the draw.
Well, I think the way O'Neill sets up his teams, they're always solid, aren't they? It's always don't concede first. I think Swansea are just beginning to get the respect they deserved. Laudrup's clearly a great fit, comes in plays the same style of football as they did last season. But I think when it comes to punting, it's all about price. And Swansea City, as much as they started well, are still Swansea City. Sunderland are a big club. I love the signing of Adam Johnson. I think it's amazing they've let him go. Fletcher's a class player. Admittedly, they paid far too much for him, but he is a good player. And if you're looking at the prices, 6-5 guns ahead Swansea, definitely a layer at Star Sports for that one. And I'd be with the draw or Sunderland. Sunderland are a big price for me at 5-2.
Russ?
Well, I think the market here, guys, is you want to play under 2.5. You won't even want to play the 0-0.
Yeah.
Swansea didn't score against Sunderland in both games last season. Like Flash, let's be completely upfront with this, Flash. I also backed Swansea to go down at the start. I mean, 6 points from 2 is not what you really want at the start. But, you know, I can't kind of alter my opinion too much on that. I think they will at some point struggle. I mean, West Ham made life so easy for them last week of their defensive frailty, really. Sunderland will be set up a little bit better. I agree with Luke to a large extent here. 5-4 about a team that we were backing to go down against this solid Premier League outfit doesn't really strike us a lot of value. I think the way to play this game is you look at the draw under 2.5. The bearish negative market's surely the way to go. Sunderland have made some good signings as well, let's not forget that. They may take some time to bed in, but I think O'Neill will be delighted to get away with the point here.
Another side, of course, who've got 6 points from their 2 games so far, Everton. They take on West Brom. Let's get some thoughts on this one. Flash.
I don't think you can go away from Everton. There's a feel-good factor about Everton at the moment. West Brom, obviously, they did start well, but they were flattered with their 3-0 against Liverpool. Last-minute equaliser against Tottenham. Tottenham, really, they down tools with 20-25 to go, which I thought was very negative. So for me, I'm going to go with Everton, because I just feel that they are solid. They've got plenty of players that can damage you. So I think that Everton are good value.
Yeah, they were good in midweek as well, admittedly, with a rotated side in the Capital One Cup. Luke, who'd you like here?
Well, as a bookmaker, I love unfashionable teams, and I like teams on a roll and getting against them. And as much as I'm a massive Moyes fan, probably top 3 managers
against Everton. Here.
Against Everton, they've I think it's won 1 of their last 6 Premier League away games. West Brom are a massively underrated Premiership outfit. Solid side, did well against Liverpool. I don't see any reason why Everton should go there and expect to win, and I think the draw's a big play at about 5-2, 12-5.
Draw for Luke. Ross?
Yeah, I backed the 1-1 draw in this game, actually. One interesting stat in this game, boys, is that Everton have scored the first goal in 13 of the last 14 games, so they tend to start quite well in games. They did do the double over West Brom last year. I again was against West Brom at the start of the year. I'm not a Steve Clarke fan, and he's completely quashed all that at the moment with some very energetic, because a lot of pace in the team as well, haven't they, West Brom? So they're not a team I really want to take lightly. I don't think it's an easy game for Everton. I mean, they're clearly a team that everybody wants to be with them on. We've actually laid a little bit of 150 to 1 this week for the league. And I think they're around about 8 to 1 top 4. A lot of people very interested in Everton at the moment. We've got that confidence and great managers, some terrific players. They'll do well to keep hold of the likes of Fellaini come the next window. But I think 1-1 is the play here, just because West Brom, as Luke said, they're unfashionable but quality. So that looks to me to be the sensible play. But back Everton to score first goal if you want to follow the stats.
Okay, just very briefly, what's changed with Everton? Why have they started so well this campaign?
Because they finished so well, so the momentum just continues, and they've got someone in the box who will score goals in Jelavic. Fellaini's playing a little bit further. He's playing too defensive. They're settled, and also they're competing, and they're coming of age. You look at Jagielka, you look at Baines. They've got England international players. Then you've got a Belgium. Everyone wants a Belgian player at the moment in Fellaini. Remember, he paid 15 million for Fellaini 4 or 5 years ago. So they obviously saw what he had. For me, I think Everton are very balanced and very strong.
Yeah, interesting. Everton certainly have started the season very, very strongly, but there's a difference of opinion when it comes to how they will get on this weekend. Well, that was the punter's view of some of the key games in the Premier League on Saturday. Stuff. Welcome to the Punter as we endeavour to give you the best bets over the course of this Premier League weekend. Some fascinating fixtures, and Gordon Watson is with me in the studio. Alongside Gordon, Luke Tarr of Star Sports, plus Russ Wiseman of Sporting Bet. Now, Wigan are in action this weekend. We've been pretty swift. Wigan so far this campaign, Flash. Wigan take on Stoke. Stoke, we've had a bit of a down run. This potentially could be one of the bets of the weekend. Without
a doubt. I mean, as I said last week, Wigan were my bet of the weekend against Saints. So again, my head ruled my heart, and we proved right. They're unfashionable, but they get the job done, and they, for me, are stronger than they were last year, and they've got that belief. And I think they were like second or third best side on stats from Christmas right away in. So for me, I mean, I like Wigan, and they've got rid of their individual players like Rodallega, like Victor Moses, and they've now become a team. And Jordi Gomez, for me, is one of the underrated players in that whole squad.
See, some pundits and supporters would say, you know, no Moses, no Rodallega. They've shipped those two players. That would weaken Wigan.
No, not at all. I mean, because again, what they've done is that they've had, say, 18 months to 2 years of being smashed against a brick wall, and then all of a sudden they've broke through, and with that comes the confidence, the freedom, and the way their wing backs play is just scary, and they have got technique and discipline throughout the whole squad. So I really like Wigan.
Well, Wigan are 13 to 10, Luke. We've got Stoke at 5 to 2, the draw 11 to 5. You a Wigan fan in this one as well?
Whatever you're doing at the weekend, don't go. Save the money. Go somewhere twice as good the following weekend. Now, it doesn't matter what sporting events going on in the world this weekend. There cannot be a better bet than Wigan at 5 to 4, 13 to 10. They won't have the ball, Stoke. You can't win if you don't get the ball. Wigan will have the ball 65% of the possession minimum. Stoke have won in their last 15 Premiership games, which is against Wolves, who we all realise had given up by that stage. If you want to go back further, they've won 2 of 21. And the other win was a 1-0 win against Norwich. They're terrible. They're terrible. They can't keep the ball. They don't score enough goals. They're not good enough, and Wigan will beat them at the weekend.
Russ?
Do you know what? It pains me because I didn't want to agree with the boys here. I mean, the other thing when Flash was talking there is speaking about Wigan like they're a top 6 team. Like, they are going to be down there, Flash. I believe they're going to be struggling at some point this year. They've got to be down there at some point. They're not going to be mid-table. But however, they will win this game. They absolutely will win this game. Stoke, no wins away from home. That's 10. Only 4 goals in those 10. Pulis doing his usual trick of desperate signings on the last day, trying to anyone is available. It's a real worry. I did go to this game 2 years ago, and I'm just a byline. Obviously, a lot of the personnel are different, but Stoke did bully physically Wigan that day. The 1-0 up Wigan there with about half an hour to go, and Stoke literally just forced their way back into the game, ended up drawing the game. That's the only worry you'd have about Wigan. Can they be physically?
Is that the way to beat them?
Surely that's the only way.
They perform well against Arsenal, Manchester United and Chelsea, but if they are bullied, maybe that's the weakness. And that surely would be the way for Stoke to have any kind of chance in the game. If you take Wigan's back end of the season form against Stokes, I mean, they should be a lot shorter.
And the problem you have with Wigan, with Stoke against Wigan, is that Wigan play with 3 centre halves and then with 2 wing backs. So when they haven't got the ball, they just fill in, and you know that it's going to go up to Crouch and then get knockdowns. But the midfield for Stoke can't commit too early, because if they don't get that second one, they've got an 80-yard run back and they'll just play triangles around them. So all of a sudden you've isolated your front man, which then releases your wing backs. So for me, it fits Wigan down to the ground.
As far as the tactics are concerned, as far as the form is concerned, as far as the prices are concerned, we like Wigan for the Wigan-Stoke clash. Tottenham are in action, of course, this weekend. An intriguing game for me against Norwich, because Spurs fans will demand victory here. They demanded victory last weekend against West Brom. They did not get it. Obviously, Spurs have been very busy in the transfer market ahead of this particular fixture, but the pressure just maybe beginning to build on Andre Villas-Boas.
Well, I mean, it'd be harsh if it does. Obviously, if they hadn't let the last-minute equaliser in against West Brom, everyone would have said that they've had a tough road trip at Newcastle, and then they've won their home game. I expect them to win comfortably tomorrow. I think Norwich will finish either bottom or second at the bottom, well adrift. So for me, I can't look at anything other than Tottenham to win, and Adebayor to score on his homecoming.
2-5, Luke, about Spurs. Would you be a backer at 2-5 or a layer?
I'd always have to be a layer, to be honest. That said, I fully expect them to win. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Flash. I think Norwich will finish bottom. I think they're poor. It's 34 Premiership games since they kept a clean sheet. That said, I think, like we've alluded to before, Tottenham are light on goals. And I thought it was interesting that, they've bought Dembele seemingly to replace Van der Vaart, because he's on his way to Hamburg, if you believe anything you read. But Van der Vaart scores 10-15 Premier League goals a season, and Dembele scores 1 or 2. So I think they're light on goals, and they're only even going to get lighter. So taking 2-5 against them week in, week out is only going to lead to one thing, in my opinion.
Interesting about Dembele, because he can play a variety of positions. His goal-scoring record is not good, although he creates lots of goals. But I guess in a better side, you expect him to score a little freer, maybe. How do you see this?
I think he may do a little bit better from the goal side of things, just because of the players around him. But let's put this in context. This fixture last year, Spurs lost 2-1. I was at the game. I actually laid, just before the game started, a 30-grand bet at 3s on Spurs that day, and they were just atrocious. The defending in that game was abysmal from both sides. Actually, Spurs only scored 1 goal. How they did that, I don't know. But this is a real worry for Spurs now, and I know it's unfair, as Flash mentioned there, about AVB, but this is a guy who has managed Chelsea and Spurs. He's only won 3 of his last 14 games as a manager. This guy's under intense pressure. He's inherited a side who are used to coming around about the 4th mark. They've got to win this game. I think it's intense pressure for them. I know we expect them to win, and I know Norwich are poor, but 2-5, would you really want to be steaming into a dressing room that clearly, as that game as they're walking out, will be under some degree of pressure? It's not for me, I must admit. I think on the handicaps, I think I'd rather be with the away side. If they have a gung-ho approach, I think they might unsettle Spurs in this one. Yeah,
it'd be a fascinating one. I like that, actually. Maybe a goal and a quarter, goal and a half for Norwich. It'll be interesting to see, as will the early evening kick-off in the Premier League. Manchester City take on Queen's Park Rangers. Ross, we knew what happened with this game last season with Aguero scoring very late on. He's not going to score this time around because he's injured, but City are expected to win.
Yeah, and it's etched into legendary status already, this game. It always will be. Both games last season were 3-2, guys, so that's an interesting scoreline if a punter wanted to kind of follow that trend. But the interesting fact here is that we all agreed, didn't we, prior to the show, City aren't where they were at the end of last year right now, are they? They're conceding goals. They're probably just settling back into things. They've got the extra cloud of that difficult Champions League draw, which we'll talk about later on. And QPR, as poor as they've been, they've clearly made some signings. They've probably overpaid the wage bill. We don't even want to know how bad that is. But I don't know if they won't score a goal in this game and get on the score sheet and cause City some trouble. So that would probably be the way I'd like to play it. Maybe City to win the game, but maybe even if you wanted a little bit of fun, QPR to be leading at half-time, City to go on and win it. It's a huge price, I know, but that might be a value play in this game, because we do know City. Last 15 minutes, there's no team like them. They're the new United, aren't they? In the last 10 minutes.
Much of the chagrin of United fans. I think the way to play this potentially, Luke, is somehow to get a QPR goal in your bet, whether you're looking at goals for both sides or both teams to score or QPR to take the lead, whatever it is, you feel that City are a little bit leaky at the minute. Yeah,
well, I think the point is betting and running, isn't it? I mean, as Star Sports for us, that's a huge part of our market. Forget the bet beforehand, sit there, watch it happening, place your bet during the game. I think the prices are right. I'm happy to lay 5 on Man City, happy to lay 12 to QPR. What I would say, though, is Man City love to concede at the moment, concede for fun, concede first in most of their games recently. Their last 8 Premiership goals, 7 of them have come in the second half. Like Russ said, they love to score with 15 minutes to go. So if it was for me, I'd sit down, no bet, watch the first 15, 20 minutes, hope it's 0-0. If it does go 1-0, it quickly goes 1-0, and have a nice bet at half-time or during the game.
We're looking at 1 or 2 correct scores here. Flash with City doing 2-0, 15-2, but it's the nil that I can't have at the minute because you do feel City are going to concede. How do you?
Yeah, I would lay Man City prior to the game, and at some stage I know that there'll be a completely different price than they are at the start. Like at Southampton, we did the same with Chelsea, Reading, and again, because it's so early, they are lax. And now I remember playing a new system with this 3-5-2. So for me, I mean, QPR's feel-good factor, if it weren't for Joey Barton getting sent off, they would have probably pulled off one of the best wins of the season. So they are going there. Mark Hughes going back to his old place, he'll have them right. They have been so poor, QPR, that I would want to be against Man City.
I know that you're close to Southampton, and what was the vibe speaking to Southampton boys when they were beaten at Manchester City by 3 goals? So did they feel that they had a chance? Did they feel that City were gettable?
Not until after the event. I mean, the big thing was with them that they grew in confidence, but when they went 1-0 down, they'd have a penalty missed. All of a sudden, you start thinking it could be your day. So they had a penalty missed. They then went 1-0 down, and then it was a case of, well, we've got nothing to lose here, so you play with a bit of freedom. And then they get a goal, bit of a ricochet, pinball wizard, it ends in the back of the net. Ricky Lambert came on, gave him another lift, but the bottom line is, I think everyone always knew that Man City, you make them angry, they're going to sting you at some stage.
Do you think City are vulnerable in terms of the title race, because they're still favourites, obviously?
Oh yeah, they're massively vulnerable, especially at the price, because you look at they only won on goal difference, and yet there's probably 2 points between them and Manchester United. So I would definitely want to be with Man United, especially with now the European campaign that awaits them as well.
Let's talk to some layers here. We've got Luke and Russ, obviously, about City. And have you seen any big money for City to win the league?
No, not really. Like we said a couple of weeks ago, I think the move's backing United at Christmas. I still think that's the case. Like you said, they won the league on goal difference. Have they strengthened? Not really. Man United, Kagawa looks a player, that's for sure. Van Persie, we know he's a player. Vidic is a new player, effectively. They've got their best player, best centre-half back. So United have really come on. I think they still need one more ball-playing midfielder, but I think everyone needs one more player, really, don't they? But I think Man United are definitely the team for me to win the league.
Russ, City, false favourites-ish?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if you poll most experts, they'd probably still say City are the likely winners. Let's be clear on that. I think the odds reflect that as well. But, you know, you don't get, and this is the punter, this is the show for punters, you don't get many people steaming in and placing long-term bets. You know, there's not so much credit around these days. You don't want all that money tied up for the season. So Luke's point of maybe wait until Christmas is a good one. But we've got a new element, haven't we, to the title race now? Chelsea are 9 from 9. We probably really weren't considering them. It was all about Manchester, one or the other. Now, all of a sudden, we've got a third element to it. It has to make City more vulnerable, doesn't it? Because Chelsea do look as though they could maybe stay the course. I know it's early days, but that's not a bad start, is it, 9 from 9? And if City were to slip up, you don't want to get too far behind in this league. And we know United will finish strong. So I think the prices are about right at the moment. City deserves to be favourites, but there's certainly no shoe-in at all, Dan.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens to City's price. They are, of course, expected to win at the weekend, and we think that they probably will do, but we also factor in a QPR goal somewhere along the line and have a look at some of those speciality markets, whether it be over 2.5, over 3.5, or even Queen's Park Rangers to score the first goal at the Etihad. Well, that was the punter's view on some of the key games of the Premier League weekend. Welcome to the punter as we endeavour to point you in the right direction when it comes to the Sunday Premier League fixtures. Gordon Watson is with me in the studio alongside Gordon, Luke Tarr of Star Sports, plus Russ Wiseman of Sporting Bet. Some intriguing Sunday fixtures. The first game we're going to have a look at, chaps, is the early kick-off flash. Liverpool versus Arsenal. Arsenal haven't scored as yet in the Premier League. Lots of people talking about the fact that Robin van Persie would have maybe earned them 6 points in the 2 fixtures that they've played so far. It's never as simple as that, but if you were an Arsenal fan, would you be worried with the lack of goals so far?
No, not at all. I'd be quite infused that they've kept 2 clean sheets, and on 3 or 4 occasions last week I saw all 3 of the 4 defenders in a line, arms went up, and
Classic Arsenal.
Yeah, but they were so in tune with each other, and as long as they don't let goals in, you know sooner or later they're going to score. And if you have a look at the way these two sides match up, Liverpool at Anfield, they're going to overcommit. They've done it in 2 games already, and if there's one team that are going to pick you off and want that space to be able to play, it's Arsenal. So for me, I'd go against Liverpool and have Arsenal in the draw.
I mean, it's important what you say, because this is going to be a very different feel of the game tactically. You know, Liverpool aren't Stoke or Sunderland. Liverpool will come at Arsenal. They'll have to, won't they?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, there is a feel-good factor at Liverpool, but that'll only last for so long. I watched them again last night, and it was a pretty strong side that finished the game, and they'd run out of ideas. If it wasn't for Suarez, then they would have struggled, and I think that Hearts may have even pulled off a shock in extra time. So for me, Liverpool, one-dimensional. They haven't got many ideas. I can't believe they've got rid of Andy Carroll, and I keep harping on about that. But for me, it's Arsenal.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because Liverpool were much better against Manchester City, but as the Flash said, Luke, weren't great against Hearts, and they weren't great certainly for large periods of the game against West Brom, even though they were down to 10 men. And I would imagine it's difficult for the punters to get a handle on them at the moment. What's your view in their game against Arsenal?
Well, I think the point is, at 11 to 10, you're saying they're roughly 50-50 to win the game. Okay, equally, they're 50-50 to turn up. One day they're quality, the next day they're dire. They were terrible against Hearts, absolutely terrible. And the keeper should never have got beat for the Suarez goal at his near post either. So effectively, we can say all these things, but they shouldn't have scored in that game. Lacked ideas, didn't look like scoring at any point to me. Thought they were desperately poor. I equally expect them to come out and probably play very well against Arsenal now. And that's the difficulty of it. But Arsenal have lost 1 of their last 8 trips to Anfield. I love the fact that they're keeping 2 clean sheets. Liverpool got no ideas about scoring goals. And I think 4 to 5, under 2.5 goals, would be my second best bet of the weekend.
Yeah, we've got plenty of correct scores, obviously, here. 0-0, 10 to 1, 1-1, 6 to 1. We have seen plenty of draws in this fixture, Russ.
Dan, that's a good point as well, and the points the boys make here is good about Liverpool. Very difficult to predict, aren't they? We've got 10 years of body of work to go on here that they really don't. We don't know what's going to happen with Liverpool, but you know, if you take the game against Man City, they were the better team, weren't they? They were the better team against the champions, one of the favourites for the Champions League, the favourites to retain the league. So they've clearly got quality about them, but you know, it's when they do overcommit and when they kind of just play this gung-ho style that they don't really know have any structure about it. But I saw more short passes from Rodgers, the style of his play last week, so that's maybe something to.
It's going to take a little bit of time.
It's got to take some time, but they got quality in there. Poor last night again. They've always been the bookmakers' friends. I mean, they've been so good to us now for a good decade. In terms of a correct score in this game, I take it from the boys here. The value has to lie with Arsenal. One interesting stat we spoke out off air here, Dan. 7 times in the last 7 games between these two teams, there's been a goal after the 90th minute. Incredible, really, considering you'd think they'd be quite tight. So things do seem to fall apart when these two teams play each other. I like the 1-1 draw. I think it's a fairly safe play. 6 to 1. It's probably the favourite scoreline out of the entire bunch, but that seems to be a fairly reasonable one from the bunch we've got up there. But I wouldn't want to be with Liverpool, I have to say. It's a different one. I was with them against City. The prices are just too short now, and as Luke said, if they do turn up, you're on to win it. If they don't, you're guaranteed to be on a loser. That's the problem with Liverpool.
It'd be interesting to see what happens because Liverpool, you do feel they've got some quality, maybe not enough to get over Arsenal on Sunday. Also Newcastle in action on Sunday because of their Europa League exploits in midweek. They take on Aston Villa. Luke, Villa have been pretty poor so far. I think everyone will recognise that. Can we trust Newcastle to get the job done here?
Well, I'm going to contradict myself now and agree with you and disagree with you in a way. Villa, to say they've been poor would be an understatement. They've been terrible. They've been woeful. They've been bad to watch and haven't looked like they've got any quality whatsoever. However, they are a Premier League outfit. Lambert is a decent manager, and Darren Bent, they've always got goals. And betting is all about prices. Newcastle are decent, they're not great. I think 5 to 1, 11 to 2 in a place Villa is almost disrespectful. And although I don't necessarily expect Villa to go there and win, I would definitely be backing them at 11 to 2.
Interesting, isn't it, Flash? Because if you'd have priced this game up this time last year, there's no way that Newcastle would have been 4 to 6.
This is the second best bet of the weekend for me. I'd even put them in a double with Wigan because you have a look at Newcastle. This game will be won and lost in the midfield region. And I will give you 3 or 4 weeks to find me an Aston Villa midfield. So, and the strength of Newcastle is their midfield. So for me, Newcastle all the way. They will continue for 90 minutes to create, and we know they score goals. So I cannot make a case for Villa.
It'd be interesting to see the correct scores on this one because you're struggling for goals as well, Villa, aren't you? I mean, I know that Darren Bent missed lots of last season, but if he doesn't score, then Villa don't tend to cause opposition any real problems.
It's a big problem, isn't it, Dan? And it's very fashionable now to bash Villa. Everybody wants to be against Villa, and some places 5-2 to go down. I know we've got other people in the media really putting the boot in. Lambert, would you believe, already being backed to be the first manager out. Crazy stuff, really, considering. But the key to this game is what Luke said. It is about price, isn't it? It is about value. 4-6, 11-2. This time, though, Villa will have some pace when they're Bent and Bonahor up front. That could cause problems, and maybe that's enough to get them off the score sheet. Darren Bent, let's not forget, he's an elite striker. He's a 15-20 million pound striker. This guy. This is not a joke. I know he's had injury trouble, but he can put the ball in the net. And Villa, they've still been ambitious with their spending. So I think we've got to try and find a way from a betting point of view of being with Villa here. So maybe from a correct score point of view, maybe Villa to get on the score sheet, maybe a 1-1 draw again. Certainly, I think a big value price here is I think around about 50-1 with some firms. Villa to be leading at half time, Newcastle to then overpower them in the second half. I know it's a huge price, but you throw that out there. Maybe Villa can start strong, and Newcastle, as you'd expect from a top team, finish the game with a little bit of style.
Are we predicting goals in this one, Flash?
Oh,
I mean, if you were looking over and under, were you going looking over?
Oh yeah, I'd go over, and I'd probably be more than happy to give Villa a 1 or 2 goals start.
And when it comes to, you talked about Newcastle midfield, have they got it right in terms of the way they attack? Because we saw late last season, Demba Ba was shunted out to the left-hand side, or sometimes to the right, and it was Papi Cissé, of course, who played up front, not on his own, but certainly the spearhead of a 4 with 3, and that's the difficulty, isn't it, for Lampard, to try and get that balance right?
Yeah, but what he's got then is earlier on in the season, Tiote and Caballé, they played together. They played in a 2. Then what he did is he pushed out Cissé out to the Demba Ba out to the left, Cissé at the front. Caballé went and sat in the middle. All of a sudden, when you pick them up, you don't know who they are, and then they have 2 sitters behind that. So that you've got 4 boys going forward, but they've always got an insurance policy of 2 midfielders to shuffle across and close any holes. I think that Bonahor and Bent are always going to give you a threat, but I think that they will they'll get starved of chances because of the midfield getting overrun.
Luke, in the goals markets, are you looking to go high or low in this one?
I think it's desperately difficult. I think a big thing is who's actually going to be on the pitch tomorrow. You know, Tiote's linked with everyone all over the country. I think a big thing in this game is keeping hold of him. If he does go, there might be a gap in that midfield that be exploited. But I think under 2.5 goals, around even money, I think that's probably the bet for me.
Interesting. I must admit, I think I'll go over in this one. Looking for goals for Newcastle. Let's look at the game at St Mary's on Sunday. It's Southampton versus Manchester United. Manchester United Flash saw glimpses against Fulham, but Fulham did score first, and we saw United vulnerable against Everton on the opening weekend this season. You're close to Southampton. I mean, will they be looking just for a point from this? Will they looking to take the full 3 points? What's their tactics going to be?
I think they've got to be positive. I mean, there was a time 15 years ago when we were playing that we relished Man United coming down because it was 3 points to us 9 times out of 10.
You're a bogey side for a long time.
Yeah, massive shift in the paradox now. And I would say that Man United at 6-10, I would say that they're probably good things, to be honest, because they've got players. They need points. They can't slip up. It's a big old pitch. It's not like the Dell. You know, they will get time on the ball. And Southampton have got to be positive, which then leaves them vulnerable at the back, because he's brought in a few players, but for me, not enough threat and not defensively good enough against the top boys.
Never like taking odds on away from home, but you tend to feel that United probably will win this one.
Yeah, I mean, they're gulfs apart, aren't they? If Man United turn up, they should really win. It has shifted that paradox, like you said. Man United have won 6 of their last 7 trips down there. It'll be in all the coupons this weekend with us at Star, and we'll be sitting there thinking, come on, Southampton, do us a turn. But it's one of the ones you don't really expect, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I think it'd be more fun to come up with some sort of market of Man United to start and finish the game in the same kit or something like that. But I think United 8-15 will probably win the game, and we'll sit there and hope they get beat, but I doubt it will happen.
We're listing correct scores here. I mean, United 2-0, 3-0. I mean, that nil to me is still an anomaly, because we saw against Fulham that they just looked a little iffy at the back, and they've got so many problems, United, at centre half, haven't they? We've seen Michael Carrick play there.
Well, that's right, but they're going to be fantastic to watch this year, aren't they, United? They really are going to be really wonderful, and for betting turnover, betting interest, they're still the team to be on and to enjoy. I mean, whenever they're televised, whenever the media are covering them, they're going to be some tremendous games. And, I take the boys' point here, but, it is about value, it is about betting. And United, let's not forget, they've lost 3 of the last 4 games away from home. All 4 of those games, Dan, were 1-0. And that's an interesting scoreline now. If you back 1-0 both sides, that gives you an idea of what we're talking about here. But they've gone back to their form of maybe a season before last, where they were starting to not do the business away from home. They were really struggling. And at the moment, they've kind of got themselves in this rut where they're keeping the ball away from home, not doing any scoring at all, really, and basically failing. So at the moment, I don't mind people dumping them into the coupon, because Southampton have clearly got to do something. Nigel Adkins, the jolly to be first out. This is their big game, isn't it, really, so far? This is the one I'm flashing. I take it away from you here. You know exactly what's going on at that club, but they'll be up for this in some extraordinary way.
Yeah, they will, but
game for them.
And that's the reason we went for Wigan last week, because it was their first game back in the Premiership. You knew they'd overcommit. They don't keep the ball as well as they should do, and also when they do overcommit, they're perfect for a counter-attack. Well, then if you don't keep the ball against Man United and you overcommit because you're looking and you're almost trying to force things, they've got Arsenal next week. So again, they've always said get the first 4 or 5 games out of the way, then our season starts, because they've had Man City, Arsenal, Man United and Wigan at home, and Wigan just matched them beautifully.
Yeah, it'd be interesting exactly if Robin van Persie will start. Of course he will start, because there's no Wayne Rooney at the moment. That could be a blessing in disguise, perhaps, and Robin van Persie will undoubtedly be popular when it comes to first goal scorer punts. Well, that was the punter's view of the key games on Sunday in the Premier League. Welcome to the Punter, as we take a look at the Champions League and hopefully put you onto the best bets when it comes to Europe's premier club competition. We're going to talk outright prices first of all. Gordon Watson with me in the studio, alongside Gordon, Luke Tarr of Star Sports and Russ Wiseman of Sporting Bet. Usual suspects at the top of the market flash, with Barcelona and Real Madrid dominating the betting, taking a big percentage out. But as we saw last season, it's not as simple as just backing the top La Liga clubs, is it?
No, I was bridesmaid again. I think I was bridesmaid in every cup competition last year, because I had Bayern Munich from the off, and this year I won't be going against Barcelona. I think they've got a lot more steel. David Villa's back. They've just took Song. They really are, for me, I think we see, 11-4? That's massive. That is absolutely massive, because there's question marks over Real Madrid, Manchester United. Definitely, Man United should get out their group at a canter, but they should have done that last year. I don't know about Man United's strength in depth as well. If something happens to Robin van Persie and Rooney's out as well, then they might struggle to score goals. Man City and Real Madrid, well, are they even going to get out the groups? They should do. Bayern Munich, flat as you see. Chelsea, they want to bore everyone.
Can't do it again, can they?
Juve, how good are they? Have they got the money to go and get the players? And Arsenal at 25-1, they show me much more value than the majority of them, but Barcelona for me.
Flash has just knocked out nearly all the field bar Barcelona. Do you see it that way, Luke?
Yeah, all the winners of their various leagues are rubbish. That's the sad fact of the matter is we have to agree with him, really, don't you? I think Man City are a big price at 10-1.
Yeah,
I think that's slightly disrespectful. I think the fact that they got knocked out in the group last year has done us punters a turn and given us a bit of value this year. And if it was me, I'd have 2 bullets rather than one. I'd have Barcelona and Man City coupled running for me.
Ross?
Well, it's a fascinating market, Dan, because already we're only 24 hours old with the draw, but this is already what you'd call a mature betting market. This isn't really going to move now, unless there's some really dramatic results. It's going to pretty much stay this way now, Dan. Pretty much the end of the group, actually. I know the boys might have a little bit of difference, but Barcelona aren't going to be 7-4 at the end of this, and they're not going to be 7-2. It's going to remain in that kind of fashion, unless maybe Real Madrid get knocked out, which is unlikely. So, you know, we've got a very mature market. We've got tactically aware teams. I'd prefer not to go steaming in here, because obviously we saw last year that people were obviously finding new ways to play Barcelona. It's definitely happened again at the start of this campaign. They're starting to understand a little bit more about that technique. So clearly they deserve his favourites, but you know, they're one pulled hamstring for Lionel Messi away from being 5-1. Let's make no mistake about that. That's exactly what we're talking about here. So I prefer not to go stepping in yet. It's going to be fantastic just trading these groups and the games before we get to really talk about the winner, I think, later in the year.
Luke, we talk about Man City at 10-1. We think that they could be a bit of value there in the Champions League for the second season, after being maybe a bit naive in the first time around. Can the same potentially be said about Paris Saint-Germain? I know they weren't in the Champions League last year, but they got all the money, of course, last summer. Now they're kicking on in the Champions League. You can get around about 20-25 to 1, something like that. Are they a team potentially that could be a bit of value?
No. No, I mean, I think...
It's a long intro to a short answer.
Yeah, exactly. If you look at the... if you're using the Man City model, then I think that you look at it, Man City had much better players, much better quality, equally as good manager, and they failed to do it. PSG have started the season poorly. I think the players that they've brought in aren't of the calibre that Man City brought in last season. And I think they're lays in every game they play because they're a fashionable club with fashionable players. I think they're a lay to win the group, and I think they're a lay to win the tournament.
Flash?
I just can't believe Arsenal are 25-1, especially if they continue to defend the way they are. If
Think they're a better prospect maybe in the Champions League than the Premier League?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I'm saying that because they've got players that will score goals. I'd probably just need that Czech Teoti, that Michael Essien type figure who will sit and protect and just let the flair just go on and do what they do. But for 25-1, I think Arsenal will definitely be there or thereabouts come the quarterfinals, and then you obviously need a bit of luck.
Let's take a look at the group betting. We'll start with Arsenal's group because it's Group B. And on the face of it, this looks like a fairly simple task, doesn't it, for Arsenal? Schalke at 3s, Montpellier 7-1, Olympiacos 14s. Arsenal should qualify for that.
Oh, without a doubt. I'm pretty sure they will qualify, but Montpellier have lost their goals in Giroud. Olympiacos, where we've seen them against Arsenal in the last few years, they've come up short massively, especially Highbury. Normally 4 or 5 go against them. Schalke, a bit of an unknown quantity. They rotated quite a few of their players up the front. But Arsenal, if the defence is right, they go away, they get what they need, I'm sure they'll win the group.
Luke, who's your two to qualify here?
Well, I think Schalke's big at 3-1 to start with, so definitely the goals in Huntelaar's huge there. 10-11 Arsenal is big. I'd probably be a lay. I think we're at 4-6 at Star Sports. And no one likes going to Greece, that's for sure. Doesn't matter what sort of quality player they seem to have, they seem to get a result. Schalke to win the group at 3-1 is a certainty for me. Not a certainty, certainly my bet in the group.
We've seen in the past, Russ, that Arsene Wenger doesn't really mind not topping the section. For him, it's not the be-all and end-all, just qualification is the be-all and end-all. That's put them in difficult knockout draws in the past, but he doesn't mind, so punters have got to bear that in mind, certainly.
Yeah, I think a safe conveyance is the most important thing, Dan. Just get through this group, and like you say, Wenger is a master at doing that. The style of European football definitely suits Arsenal. Flash makes a good point there. I mean, the way that it usually sets up is always in their favour. So I can understand why they're 10-11. But let's try and think from a betting point of view now. Let's put ourselves in Tuesday and Wednesday night mode. And away to any of those teams is not going to be an easy game, is it? They're not going to be massively short prices. They conceivably could lose all of those games. They're not really going to be bigger than, I mean, maybe they'll be odds on away at Olympiacos. They're not going to be odds on the other games. Maybe even money against Montpellier, maybe 5-4, 6-4 against Schalke. So I don't really see this being a gimme, but Wenger's a master at getting through this. You'd expect him to do it, but as a bookmaker, you'd have to lay the 10-11.
Let's have a look at Group D, because this is Manchester City's group. They are not favourites to win the group because, of course, Real Madrid have to be. They are a shade odds against Flash. What do you think?
I think Man City are quite
Odds on,
value at 5-2. I really do. I think Man City have got international stars throughout 1 to 11. I think they've even got more depth on the bench. I think at 5-2, you'd probably you want to take them to be above Real Madrid. One of these boys are obviously going to be knocked out. I don't see Real Madrid and Man City going through, but it's going to be very, very tight. I mean, poor old Ajax. I mean, they're not bad neither at the moment, and they say Dortmund are not as strong. Germans are always strong. So I see Man City going through, and at 5-2, they could have been shorter.
Can you see Real Madrid getting knocked out of that section?
No. I had to give you another short answer. I think the interesting thing about this group is you've got two teams that won the league on the back of just not losing at home. You get 9 points at home in the Champions League group, you qualify.
Pretty much
the
there.
stats have proven that. So I think Man City, if they beat Dortmund at home, beat Ajax at home and draw with Real Madrid at home and vice versa, they're both on 7 points. They'll pick up the points away from home, and I think they'll definitely both qualify.
Russ?
Yeah, it's a group that looks a lot harder than it actually is, Dan, and everyone said and shouted loud about how painful this group was, but it's more about Dortmund and Ajax's frailties this year than it is about Real Madrid and City's condition. Madrid and City will qualify from this group, I've no doubt, and mainly because Dortmund are just not quite the team they were last campaign. I mean, we have quite a big business in Germany, and the general feeling is that they've kind of lost a little bit of their edge this year. Should make it fairly simple for City and Real Madrid. Let's not forget, City will be relishing these teams coming to the Etihad now. mainly because they're the champions, aren't they? There's that extra kudos, the extra size to their game now.
What about Chelsea in Group E? Because I think many people were down on Chelsea when it came to the Premier League, but they've started strongly, and as we've seen, Roberto Di Matteo can get the job done in Europe. But how are we seeing this particular section?
Well, again, I mean, you know, even money, you want to be a layer. As a bookmaker, I want to be a layer of that kind of price, mainly because Shakhtar, if they keep hold of some of their good South American players, they'll be a threat. I mean, you know, as we've said before, I thought the team at the bottom there, if you'd have said to me that guy was a skier or anything, could be anything, couldn't he, that bloke? So I'm not trying to say that I know anything about this. A Danish team, I take it they had that. But I mean, but Juventus will be difficult as well. But Chelsea at the moment, there's a feel-good factor about those guys. Obviously, they've got the Super Cup later on, 9 points out of 9. At the moment, they're playing some good football as well. You know, it's about trends as well, betting. People want to be with Chelsea at the moment.
Look.
Well, I think in general, Italian football's sort of on the back burner and looked down upon slightly, isn't it now? But Juventus won the league and they didn't lose a game. An unbeaten team. Everyone knows all about the Arsenal Invincibles. God, I got bored of that. But we haven't heard anywhere near enough about the Juventus team that managed to do it. Shakhtar got decent Brazilian players, haven't they? No one likes going to Shakhtar. No one gets a lot there. Big layer of the even money Chelsea for me.
Flash?
Yeah, I mean, I think Chelsea will go through, but the value is definitely Shakhtar.
Shakhtar 12's big.
12s, they're massive. But again, I do feel Chelsea will definitely have enough. They're streetwise and they've got players.
Would we have said that this time last year about Chelsea, do you think?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because they had players.
I mean, Di Matteo has found a way in Europe, hasn't he?
Well, he has, but there again, as we said about Barcelona having a way, people will find a way then to counteract that. Now, the big thing with me on the Premier League and in Europe is Fernando Torres. Yeah. They've got no replacement for him.
No, that would seem to be the way. Luke, very briefly.
I was just going to say, you know, never did we thought we'd say Torres would be a massive miss this time last year, but he gets injured, they are in trouble.
Let's quickly look at Manchester United's group because they've got the easiest section as per usual, although they didn't manage to make it through last year. Will they this time around, Luke?
Yeah, definitely. I think they'll win the group comfortably. Braga, a good side, so Galatasaray and Cluj, but they're not in the class of Man United.
Flash, what do we think here? United are very, very short and they didn't do it last year.
No, they didn't, and that'll be the main reason that I wouldn't go against them this year, to be honest. No stone will be unturned to make sure. I mean, they can go and win in Cluj, which is Transylvania. So Galatasaray, not the Galatasaray of old. So Man United for me.
Russ?
Yeah, biggest problem for United here, Dan, is literally the tickets. Will they be able to sell tickets to these games? I mean, these are not going to be interesting games for a lot of the fans. They're not going to be sellouts at all. I was at a lot of the games last year, and this will not get those United fans that excited on Tuesday and Wednesday night. Should sail through the group really 2-7. You can imagine some of the bigger hitters, the pro money. Looking at that group, you can imagine them playing.
Give me the team that goes through with Manchester United, Russ.
I'll go with Braga just because of the Portuguese being good. Yeah.
I'll go with Cluj because they'll be the biggest prize of the three.
Flash, quickly.
Well, I'm stunned, Braga.
Braga. I think Braga will go through with Manchester United. And that is the punter's view on the Champions League outrights and the group stages. That's your lot from the punter for this edition. Many thanks to all my studio guests. We'll see you next time.